The voices of accountability. This beacon encourages every Bajan to speak up and take responsibility when they see something going wrong in this country, in their community, in their houses, in their jobs. It embodies the idea that accountability isn't just for leaders, but for every citizen. Tanya Stevens reminds us of corruption in high and low places only to remind us that because we have a colonial mentality, we see only the oppression that is above us and not the oppression that is among us. Creating a culture of silence in the face of patent wrongdoing is not just acceptable, it is dangerous and it is destructive. And speaking up respectfully and, more importantly, speaking truth becomes a civic duty of every citizen of this country and everyone who chooses to want to live among us, even though not a citizen. This applies, my friends, to whether we're talking about what happens in our home, our workplace, the church, the community, or even the block, especially the block. There is nothing to be gained through remaining silent when we know better. And to say it shoulda, it coulda, I didn't. Regret cannot be the platform to this country's stability, harmony, or prosperity.
So Wagwan Jamaica. So hi everyone, I hope that you are all doing well. So guys, kindly, if it's your first time coming across my video, feel free to share, comment, and also don't forget to smash the subscribe button. So guys, today we are going to see a beautiful speech that comes out from this wonderful woman and a leader called Monttly. You know, Monttly is being known for taking good care of his people, and she always take good care of her country. So guys, let us watch this beautiful speech, what is telling the leaders and the people of Carrabian, and even the others people, like other people are also mentioned, leaders of other countries are at least being advised. So guys, watch this video till the end. I'll be back with some comments. Stay tuned, guys.
Barbados, Jamaica, Grenada and Dominica took action to ban South African goods in solidarity with the people of South Africa. Recognizing that though they were thousands of miles away, there was an injustice being perpetrated, man's inhumanity to man, that required people who had little power to take a stand and to say, wrong is wrong. And their efforts were soon followed. Months later, in April of 1960, in our sister island in Trinidad and Tobago, where the dock workers of Trinidad refused to take the cargo from South Africa off the ships in April of 1960, and refused to refuel the ship that had brought the cargo, recognizing that even though they were dock workers and not capable of great and grave decisions, they could do what they could within the space that they could. And their work was to be followed then, of course, by that titan of Caribbean revolution and social reform, Fidel Castro, El Comandante, who worked then with that other great Caribbean titan, Michael Manley of Jamaica, well known perhaps to many of you. And of course our own father of independence, Errol Walton Barrow, who worked with Fidel Castro in the struggle for the liberation of the peoples of Southern Africa by allowing the planes that left Havana, Cuba, to refuel in Bridgetown, Barbados, in order to bring the troops in to Southern Africa, and in particular Southwestern Africa. And then, of course, there was the decision of the Commonwealth heads of government. And I remember as a young law student in London, caught up in the fervor of the anti-apartheid movement, and caught up in the passion of wanting to see your own imagery on television, because in those days you just didn't. And when we saw the students of South Africa week after week rise up to take their future into their own hands, it placed the pressure on leaders like Margaret Thatcher and others, such that by the time the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting went to Nassau, Bahamas, a determination was made to establish the Eminent Persons Group. And in that Eminent Persons Group, co-chaired by Malcolm Fraser of Australia and Chief Obasanjo of Nigeria, it also included a woman who was to become the first Governor General of Barbados, Dame Nita Barrow, who came here as one of the 7 persons to determine whether there could be a platform for talks and for release in order to ensure that the ungodly and unconscionable actions of apartheid could be brought to an end. Regrettably, their work was to be stymied by the then government, but they were capable and able at the time to meet Madiba. And it is instructive what they wrote in their unanimous report about Madiba in 1986, and I quote, "Having visited him on 3 occasions, what was their assessment? That he impressed us as an outstandingly able and sincere person whose quality of leadership were self-evident. We found him unmarked by any trace of bitterness, despite his long imprisonment. His overriding concern was for the welfare of all races in South Africa in a just society. He longed to be allowed to contribute to the process of reconciliation." This was not post-release. This was not on the eve of release. This was still deep in the bowels of his imprisonment. And you know, I've deliberately decided to take a segue this afternoon before addressing the fundamental issues, because it is important that we contextualize the struggle and the values for those who refuse to be reminded, or who fail to be reminded, or who are not reminded, may well believe that this was as easy as dealing with the twinkle of an eye with the remediation and reparation of an awful thing. It hurt me to hear that there are some who believe that Madiba did not do enough, and perhaps worse for a few, that he might have been a sellout, all because what they believe, justifiably so, should be theirs today is not yet theirs. I've deliberately started this conversation this evening by carrying you back to the 1950s and stopping in the 1980s and stopping again in the 1990s. Because if there is any one single truth, it is that each of us runs our leg of the relay. And the baton is all that can be required of us to carry. And yesterday I had the distinct honor of going to the Foundation's headquarters in the Center of Memory, and of reading, and I feel so privileged to be given copies of the transcript in Madiba's own handwriting, and I shall treasure them as long as I have breath. But in reading his own assessment of where he was and what he believed had happened, in what was to become the beginning of chapter 1 of the presidential years, it was ironic that he started with the words, "Men and women all over the world, right down the centuries, come and go." Men and women all over the world, right down the centuries, come and go. What is more significant for me is that as he ended that first chapter, he also reflected on the fact that he sought at no stage for the fame that was to follow him, and that the notion that he could be regarded as a saint was one that he thoroughly rejected. And the last words, "I never was one even on the basis of an earthly definition of a saint as a sinner who keeps trying." My friends, we need to pause sometimes and to remember context always. And I do so because in a very real sense, that which I've come to address you today on too is the subject of a great struggle, and will be the subject of a struggle that will require many different people to run their different legs of the baton, of the race, to hand over the baton. And the example of Madiba is the example more than any other that I would want us to hold on to, because in so doing, it is the values that he exhibited, the moral example, the moral compass that he provides, that gives us both the strength and the capacity to run this race, which will be the greatest race that humanity will require of any generation. It stands out for me that at the very outset, courage was never lacking. It is a cause for which I am prepared to fight, but a cause for which I am prepared to die. How many of us can say that today? It was the moral fortitude of a man that determined that no type of offer with special conditionalities for early freedom would be acceptable, because what was required was justice. It is amazing that in the face of the gravest and greatest inhumanity, not just to himself, to his family, to his people, that the vengeance that would otherwise eat and force others into action was absent from his mind, body, and spirit. And as I just read to you from the evidence of the Eminent Persons Group, not conveniently so as an act of politics, but as an act of character, deep in the bosom of his imprisonment. And then there's the story that was told to me yesterday by Cello, as we looked at the photographs of what his cell contained. And I well recall my own visit to Robben Island 20 years ago. And all who, like me, have practiced a little criminal law in my career know that that is a common sight in colonial constructed prisons that had no sanitary facilities. And the humility of the man captured best in being able to ensure that when one of his own brothers was unable to take care of themselves in the most basic and human of ways, that Madiba performed the duties of cleaning for him. An example of servant leadership, if ever there is one. So forgive me if I have strayed a bit, because I believe that in this world where everything is instantaneous and quick, and where people expect results like that, we sometimes need to remind ourselves of the context of the struggles that we fight, and to remind ourselves of what truly was at stake. There are some young people who would simply now, 3 decades after his release, will only know of Nelson Mandela in the context of a history book or in the stories told by others, but would not appreciate what it is to be prevented from being able to love who you want, to work where you want, to live where you want, to do what you want, in ways that are simply not capable of contemplation today. But we can't talk about economic justice and economic opportunity if the basic aspects of freedom have not been guaranteed. No one expects us to be stuck in a moment of time, but it is the understanding that he did what was his to do. It is now up to us to do what is ours to do. And it is for that reason I've come to KwaZulu-Natal. You know, we live in a world that is at a very strange moment in time. It's been described recently as a polycrisis, and it has been so described because as soon as you get accustomed to managing one crisis, you've been hit with another one and another one and another one. And that is what it has felt like in the last few years. This country already knows what it is to lose people to the ravages of a public health crisis as you did with HIV and AIDS for so long. Then to have to face, like the rest of us, the awful pandemic of COVID-19, taking away so many. All of us know people who have died in the last few years. None of us dreamt of a moment when our movement would be restricted such that we couldn't do the things that we wanted to do. And this was not being imposed on us by authoritarian governments. This was being imposed by public health specialists for the safety and survival of all of us. And as if that were not enough, because we were already fighting the climate crisis, we were still recovering from the financial crisis of 2008-9. As if all of that was not enough, then comes the awful scourge of the cancer of inflation, the cancer of the cost of living. And believe you me, it is a cancer, because you keep trying to run after it and run after it, but you can't catch up with it in that way. And we have now to come to understand that as much as we needed to mobilize to fight against vaccine inequity, that we were not a one-issue country or a one-issue people, that we literally had to fight these multiple crises, because as all of this is happening, people were still dying from the climate crisis. I don't talk about the climate change. Change happened a long time ago. crisis is where we are, and crisis is what we have to fight. And today, I want us to recognize that what is required of us is going to have to allow us to, one, develop partnerships in places where we may never have dreamt of so doing before, and to be able to do things in new ways that we had never thought of doing, and that the actions required are not simply those of others, but of us, because it is the collective action that has led the world to be where it is today. There is no doubt that those primarily responsible for the increase in greenhouse gas emissions are the G20 countries, for whom 80% of the responsibility is there. Within that context, the traditional colonial powers who benefited from the Industrial Revolution through our blood, our sweat, and our tears, have been the ones who have effectively put the world in this position of warming. Theirs is the stock of gases. But then there are those who continue today, for which there are many of us. No name, no blame, because it's all of us. And it is the combined effect of the stop, primarily, but yes, the flow today, that continues to cause the problems. I want us to reflect on the principles of justice and solidarity.
So welcome back, everyone. I hope that you have watched the speech from this PM of known as Mia Monttly. And what I really like about Mia Monttly is that she's a good leader and she loves black people. She always takes good care of black people. She always fights for the right of the black people in diaspora in Africa. Like, it's a good leader and she always set a good example. And guys, in that video you can see that she is upset. She's very sad because these leaders that are being elected, they are not doing what they are being elected to do. They do the opposite. Citizens have decided that we want this leader. They elect a certain leader, but when this leader gets that seat, he or she does the opposite. Like, he wants to benefit himself, or she wants to benefit himself. And PM Mia Monttly, she's very sad and she's like telling the leaders to step up and do the right thing. I was very happy when I saw the people from St. James. You know, as people, we need to step up. We need to tell this government to do. We need change. We need change. We need good leaders and we need change. I was very happy to see the people of St. James the other day. They were demonstrating for their rights. The area, everything was shut down. They were demonstrating. They want good governance. And just a good example. When you want something, show up. As a citizen, we need to show up when we need something to be done. And the people of St. John really did a good job. They decided that a certain day we are going to demonstrate, we are going to cross all the roads, and we are going to tell this government live that we want good leaders, we want good governance. So our leaders, they need to do what we elect them. These leaders during campaign, before we elect them, they are very good people. They tell us agenda, what they will do, what they will change. They will be free. They give people money. They bribe people. And they're all doing this, justifying themselves. They want to get this seat. But when they get these seats, they turn out to be different people. They want to feed their stomach. They want to feed themselves. They want to get wealth. They grab people land. They they add tax to people. They make life difficult for their citizens. But not all leaders are bad. You have good leaders, God chosen one, they're good leaders. Like for example, Ibrahim Traore, guys. Ibrahim Traore is a good leader. And what makes Ibrahim Traore a good leader is that he cut all the ties with the Western nation. You know, African leaders, like many leaders, it's like they are working for the Western nation, you know. And this Western nation, they only want to benefit from us. They know African has a lot of minerals. They know Jamaican is a well-known country, a famous one. So they just want to benefit from us. Like they are taking the opportunity. They are using our leaders just to benefit themselves. But Ibrahim Traore has really done a good thing because he cut all the ties. And you have seen how his country has developed. His country has really developed. It was among the poorest in Africa, but guys, now you can testify for yourself that the country is upcoming and it is doing very well. So not all leaders are corrupt. We have good leaders, but some they are not good. They want just to benefit themselves. They care just about themselves. The other day you have seen in the court, Mark Golding was throwing some question, you know, to Andrew Holness, because Andrew Holness, Jamaican people were really complaining about bad governance. I've seen that Andrew Holness has made her wife, you know, to be the Speaker of the High Court. That means that nothing will pass there, any agenda will not pass there, because the wife knows that anything that will be passing through this court will hinder his husband. So she will make sure that nothing, completely nothing. She will make sure that the opposition don't have any chance. And that is bad governance. That's an example of bad governance and selfishness. So PM Mayor Monttly is telling the leaders to step up and do the things that they were elected to do. And as people, guys, I think we have learned a lesson from these leaders, and now we have known that we next time we have to elect people carefully. We don't have to elect people because we are of the same tribe, we can speak the same language. We don't have to elect people because we are being bribed. We elect people because we know it will help us, not even us only, it will help even our children in the future. So guys, feel free to comment anything about you think about these leaders, how they are conducting themselves. If you think they will change or they'll just buying time and bringing propagandas and saying things that they will not change, you can interact in the comment section. And guys, also don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If it's your first time coming across my video, I've been your host, Nelson Reaction, and if it's your first time coming across this video, guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, put a thumbs up, and also share this video so that at least these leaders can change. We want good leaders. We want our future kids to find this world beautiful and having good leaders. So guys, stay tuned. Meet you in the next video. Stay safe, guys. One love. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Much love from here, Kenya. One love.